It was a quiet Monday morning at the city municipal building. The lobby buzzed faintly with the sound of shoes on marble floors, distant chatter, and the occasional ding of the elevator. Civil servants moved briskly, holding files and coffee cups, barely acknowledging anyone around them. Just past the front doors, an elderly man stepped in slowly, leaning heavily on a worn wooden cane. His movements were careful, deliberate. Every step looked like it took effort. In his free hand, he clutched a creased folder marked VA Documents, Personal. His coat was weathered, his shoes scuffed, but his eyes, tired as they were, held a quiet dignity. He made his way to a wooden bench near the entrance and sank into it with a sigh, wiping his brow with a handkerchief. His breathing was uneven. He didn't speak to anyone. He didn't ask for help. He just needed a moment. Across the lobby, a young security guard leaned against the reception desk, scrolling his phone. He noticed the man sitting there and frowned. With a huff, he straightened up and began walking toward the bench. The old man, unaware of the approaching confrontation, rubbed his knees gently, perhaps out of pain or maybe habit. The guard stopped in front of him, arms crossed. "You can't just sit here," the guard snapped. "This isn't a rest stop." The old man blinked, startled. I just need a minute, son. The elevator, 4th floor, VA office." "I don't care where you're going," the guard said, voice rising. "You're holding up the area. Move along or take it outside." The man's shoulders sank. He nodded quietly and reached for his cane again, slowly pulling himself upright. The whole lobby seemed to hold its breath, though no one yet intervened. The old man wobbled slightly as he stood, gripping his cane like a lifeline. His knees trembled, but he forced himself upright. He didn't want to cause a scene. That's not how he was raised. That's not what the military taught him. "I'm sorry," he said softly, almost under his breath. "I just needed to rest a moment." The security guard rolled his eyes and scoffed. "Yeah, well, we all got problems, Grandpa. You can't be holding up lobby space like it's a waiting room. Got plenty of benches outside." "I served in Korea," the old man offered quietly, more as a fact than an excuse. "Just trying to get to the VA office. My legs don't move like they used to." The guard raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. "Korea? That was, what, 100 years ago? Look, I don't care if you served in Mars. You're not special. Rules are rules." Several people walking past slowed, glancing at the interaction, but choosing not to get involved. Some looked away. Others just kept walking. The old man's face tightened, not in anger, but in a quiet, familiar humiliation. He'd seen worse. He'd heard worse, but somehow, hearing it here, in his own city, stung deeper than enemy fire. As he reached down to grab his folder, it slipped from his grip and scattered across the floor. Medical papers, discharge forms, a faded photo of a young soldier in uniform, all spilled out. The security guard didn't offer to help. He just stood there, arms crossed, tapping his foot impatiently. From near the elevator bank, a woman in a blue blazer paused. She watched the scene unfold with narrowing eyes. Then, without a word, she stepped aside, pulled out her phone, and made a quiet but urgent call. The woman in the blue blazer stood still, her phone pressed gently to her ear. She didn't look away from the scene near the entrance, the hunched old man trying to gather his scattered papers while the security guard loomed nearby, impatient and dismissive. She murmured into the phone, "It's him." The name on the folder said William H. Marks. "He looks pale. Get here now." As she ended the call, her expression shifted from concern to quiet determination. She was no stranger to this building. A longtime aide in the mayor's office, she'd seen her share of bureaucracy, but this felt different, personal. Mr. Marks. The name had triggered something. Her grandfather used to speak of a Sergeant Marks, how he'd saved a squad pinned down in a frozen valley during the Korean War. Her grandfather never forgot that act. Neither did the mayor. He'd heard the story his whole life. She stepped forward and gently picked up a couple of the papers that had drifted near her feet. One was a photo, sepia-toned and creased with age, of a young soldier standing next to a helicopter, grinning beside a younger version of her own grandfather. Her breath caught. It was him. Meanwhile, William Marks had finally gathered most of his belongings. He stood shakily, his face pale but composed, preparing to walk out the doors without assistance or acknowledgement. The security guard gave a final scoff and turned away, muttering under his breath. The woman didn't stop him, not yet. She knew help was already on the way, and it would arrive faster than anyone expected because the man this building had just tried to discard was about to be recognized in a way no one, including that guard, would ever forget. 8 minutes later, the sound of tires crunching against the pavement broke the calm. A sleek black SUV, flanked by 2 city vehicles, pulled up directly in front of the building's main entrance. The lobby's quiet hum shifted. Heads turned. Whispers stirred. The front doors swung open, and a cluster of aides stepped through briskly. In their midst, wearing a tailored navy suit and a firm expression, was Mayor Julian Reyes. The security guard straightened instinctively, confused. The mayor wasn't scheduled for any appearances here today. William Marks had barely made it to the wall near the exit, one hand bracing himself while the other clutched his folder to his chest. His cane trembled under his weight. The mayor didn't hesitate. He didn't ask for directions. He walked straight across the marble floor, past the front desk, past the guard, and stopped in front of the old man. "Sergeant Marks," the mayor said gently, voice full of respect. "I've been looking forward to meeting you." William blinked, confused. "Do I know you?" Mayor Reyes smiled warmly. "No, sir, but I know who you are. My grandfather used to tell me stories about the man who carried him on his back through enemy fire. That man was you." Silence fell across the lobby. The mayor turned to one of his aides and took a folded chair from her hands. He set it down carefully and motioned to the veteran. "Please, Sergeant, sit. You've stood long enough." William, stunned, slowly lowered himself into the chair. People around the lobby froze, witnessing a moment that felt both surreal and deeply overdue. The security guard stood still, his face drained of color, eyes fixed on the scene unfolding just feet from where he'd barked orders only moments earlier. This was no ordinary old man. Mayor Reyes knelt beside the chair, placing a steady hand on William's shoulder. "My grandfather always said he owed his life to a man named Marks. He described you in detail, your voice, your laugh, even the way you tied your boots. Said you never left a man behind, even when it meant risking your own life." William's eyes glistened. His voice cracked. "He made it back?" "He did. He lived a long, full life because you didn't give up on him. And today I wanted to return that honor, even in the smallest way." The mayor stood and turned to face the entire lobby. Every person was silent now, watching, listening, learning. "This man isn't just a veteran," Reyes said firmly. "He's a hero, and he should be treated like one." He gestured toward the security guard. "Moments ago, this gentleman was publicly dismissed, humiliated for simply trying to catch his breath. That is unacceptable, not just for Sergeant Marks, but for anyone who's worn the uniform." The guard looked down, shame washing over his face. Turning back to the veteran, the mayor continued. "Starting today, this building will have a designated seating area in the lobby, reserved for veterans, with a sign that says, 'Heroes, welcome here.' And Sergeant Marks, it'll have your name on it." Gasps rippled through the room. A few people clapped. A woman near the desk wiped away a tear. William leaned back in the chair, stunned, humbled. "Thank you," he whispered. "But I never did any of it to be remembered." Mayor Reyes smiled. "Exactly why you always should be." In that moment, the city finally saw William Marks, not just as an old man, but as living history. And for the first time in years, he felt seen. The lobby remained hushed, the kind of silence that falls when something important has just happened, something people instinctively know they'll talk about later. Mayor Reyes turned once more to the security guard, who stood stiffly behind the reception desk, his posture no longer arrogant, but uncertain, awkward. The mayor's voice was calm but unmistakably firm. "Son, you didn't know who he was. I understand that. But that's the point. You never truly know who you're talking to, what battles they've fought, what burdens they carry." The guard swallowed hard and nodded, his earlier bravado now gone. I didn't mean to disrespect him," he muttered. "I was just doing my job." The mayor didn't yell. He didn't lecture. He simply said, "There's a difference between doing your job and forgetting your humanity." Then, gesturing to one of his aides, he added, "You'll be reassigned, somewhere where you'll have time to reflect. Because if you can't treat an old man with dignity, you're not ready to guard the doors of this building." There was no dramatic outburst, no shouting, just accountability delivered with quiet authority. The mayor turned back to William, who still sat with his hands folded over his cane, humbled by the moment, but not bitter. People began approaching one by one, not to gawk, but to shake his hand, to say thank you. A young woman brought him a bottle of water. A man offered to carry his documents upstairs. The cold, indifferent lobby had transformed, if only for a moment, into a space of recognition and grace. And the man who had once been asked to leave was now the reason they all stayed. The lobby slowly returned to motion, but something fundamental had shifted. William Marks sat upright in the chair the mayor had brought him, but this time he didn't look tired. He looked peaceful. His hands rested gently on his cane, his folder now neatly tucked under one arm. He watched as people came and went, some nodding, others simply offering warm smiles. Every single one of them now saw him, not just as an old man in need of rest, but as someone whose footsteps once echoed on distant battlefields for their sake. A small sign was already being taped near the bench by one of the aides reserved seating, with respect to those who've served. As the mayor prepared to leave, he turned back and gave William one last nod. No words, just the kind of gesture between men who understand honor without needing to speak it. William raised 2 fingers in a soft salute. The mayor returned it. Outside, the sun broke through the morning clouds, casting a gentle beam through the front windows. It spilled across the marble floor and touched the old soldier's feet, as if even the light itself had stopped to honor him. The security guard remained in the background, still processing everything. Maybe he'd walk away ashamed, or maybe changed. But as for William Marks, he sat still, heart steady, eyes calm. For the first time in a long while, he didn't feel invisible. He felt home. If this story moved you, hit like and subscribe. More real moments like this await you every day.